Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Let us give a few more minutes. I see people are coming. Thank you for being here. Maybe another minute or two before we get into our webinar. I appreciate your patience. Oh, I see people are coming. Good. Maybe one more minute. Yep, more people are joining us. Okay, let's start, and I'm hoping that more people would come. First of all, thank you very much for joining. We really appreciate that. A couple of housekeeping items before we start. This is being recorded. Just be aware of that, and we will make sure that you receive a copy of the recording. We want to keep that interactive, so please use the chat or the question, ask questions. I would also make sure that if it's needed at the end, or even interrupt Ashish in the middle of his conversation to ask your questions. But again, let's keep it live. Let's keep it interesting. This is the seminar for you, so we want to make sure that we go to the direction that is more interesting to you folks. So before any further ado, let me introduce DvSum's founder and CEO, Mr. Ashish Singhvi. Ashish, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ali. Thank you for hosting this. Yeah.
My pleasure. So, these days we hear a lot about the ChatGPT, generative AI. It has created a lot of excitement in everywhere, not just in the technology, but pretty much in every business, even for individuals. So, but one of the key questions that, I talk with a lot of customers, with a lot of industry experts, and one of the two concerns that sometimes we're hearing is that, is my data secure? Is this something that shares things with each other? We, send it to the web, send it to where I don't know, or bring data that I don't know where it's coming from into my facilities. That's number one. The security, and let me expand on that, compliance, governance, that area of piece. The other one is it accurate? You give me a number, you show me a very nice looking chart. How do I know that is actually accurate? How do I know that that's based on my data? How do I know that is not hallucinating? These are some of the two key questions we get, and that's not specific to any verticals or any job function. This is kind of, we see that across the board. And Ashish, here is your opportunity to go and demystify these two and see how DvSum is solving these two issues: data security and accuracy when it comes to chat. The floor is yours.
Yeah, very good, Ali. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining. I know, a lot of excitement in terms of, what generative AI is able to bring to organizations. And I know there's a lot of learning everybody's doing. So let's make it very productive and informative for everybody. What we'll cover today is, actually, we'll start with a more setting the stage, which is, there are many use cases of bringing generative AI into the organizations. The one that we are going to focus on is, how can you empower more people, more users in the company to self-service data themselves without having to pre-build reports, depend on IT and analytics teams to do it. So we look at the use cases of Gen AI for self-service analytics. We look at how DvSum, as an example, is enabling that capability. And then once you understand that, I think it will become more apparent that the two problems in enabling or democratizing data is about, how do you make it reliable before you expose it to your business users? And how do you ensure from an IT and InfoSec standpoint security issues? So what are the challenges? And then again, what are some best practices that we are doing at DvSum and then we are finding in the industry that companies are doing to do that? We'll try to keep this, it's an hour webinar. We'll try to make this as a 45 minutes or 40 minutes so that there's enough time for, doing Q&A. So quick introduction from DvSum standpoint. We are, our mission really is, we're based in California. We're a technology company. Our mission is that as companies are doing digital transformation, how do we elevate data culture in those organizations to drive positive business outcomes. And we do that with our data insights platform that essentially makes it remarkably easy for the organizations to discover, monitor, govern, and democratize data. And today, our focus is going to be about democratizing data, and we do that with our application called CADDI, which is Chat with Your Data. So let's set the stage for that first piece that, okay, what is the use case, right? How can chat with your data? How does ChatGPT help me with self-service analytics? And why should I do it? So let's start with basically, why is everybody investing in modernizing the data, moving to the cloud, hiring analysts, hiring data scientists? Is because in a digital first world, in a data first world, data is getting created. You want to find insights from the data so that you can drive better business or more productive business decisions from it. That's the whole thing we want to do. And so companies have invested a lot of money and time and millions of dollars hiring a lot of people to make it happen. But then if you go to the decision makers in the companies, the sales teams, the marketing teams, the operations, the customer service, the executives, and you say, are you data driven now? And the answer is, half and half. And this is something that, recent Gartner survey actually was that 57% of business users are still not making data driven decisions. There is data everywhere. Everybody knows there is data, but I'm not finding those insights. I'm not getting enough insights. And so why is that happening? I mean, we've gotten the self-service BI tools, we hire the analysts, we hire the scientists. So, why is that not happening? So to do that, we need to understand what is the remaining friction points. So if you think about a business user in a company, let's call it a salesperson or somebody in marketing, a marketing business analyst. There is data in a Snowflake, for example, or in an Oracle database. Whenever the user says, okay, I want to be data driven, I have a question about my current campaign, marketing campaign, and I want to find some insights about what is happening with the campaign. What's the first reaction they have? Oh, I must ask my analyst or IT to give me a report or to give me some data in Excel so that I can do my analysis. And the reason for this is analyzing data requires two things. One, an understanding of the technical data that's underlying in the systems, which the business teams do not necessarily have. And the second is some technical ability to interface with the data. That would be in the form of knowing how to write SQL, for example. That's the most common language. Or you can go more advanced with Python, for example, or at a minimum to be able to know how to use a Power BI or Tableau to create a report. Mind you, not to look at a report and find some insights, but to actually create it, because you are trying to find some insights. And to do that, you need to connect to the data, you need to bring it in, you need to model it, you need to do it. And that's not what a business user wants to do. So the summary is that there is still a last mile BI problem, which is that to analyze any data requires technical skills. I'm dependent on IT and analytics teams. They are getting inundated with these requests, so they can't focus on more productive or more advanced analytics. And so the whole process takes days and weeks. And that's the problem that is still not being solved. So where does generative AI and chat with your data come in? Now imagine the same exact scenario, but what if that business user could simply ask his or her question in natural language, which they are familiar with, in the business lingo, with natural language. And if the system or technology is able to bring that same information, which an IT or analytics team would do, either in terms of building a visualization or giving an extract to the user automatically, now we solve that last mile BI problem. So this is where a generative AI could solve the last mile BI problem. You don't need to upskill your business users to be able to get access to the data. They are more empowered. They are more self-service. And the net result is that you're able to, it's not just about being able to make decision faster. It's about making the decision now. I'm in a meeting, something happened. We want to make a quick decision. I'm able to find those information I need from the data and make my decision faster time to insights. So this was the part I wanted to first cover in terms of a use case of generative AI for self-service analytics. And it is about solving the last mile BI problem. How do you empower the decision makers, the business functions, to be able to chat with the data without having to go through a data literacy program and learning new technical skills, which they will not, and still being able to get access to the data and make data-driven decisions. So that is a concept. And so let me talk about, how we are doing that with DvSum. And DvSum CADDI, so that's the name of our product, that essentially enables that exact capability. What it allows that user to do is simply ask questions in natural language, and it is able to bring back relevant results and insight from your data. So this is not generated information. This is not information that is coming from the internet. This is querying your data through natural language, bringing back insights, or bringing back the data, visualizing it, and to the user. How does it work? Or what do you need to make it work? So there are three elements to it. Let me build this out. So the first thing is, if you, of course, everybody has access to ChatGPT or something like ChatGPT. What is the problem? It doesn't understand your data, your schema, your databases, your specific metrics. It will understand the industry definitions. It doesn't have understanding of your schema. So you still need the ChatGPT or GPT-4, which is the technology, the predictive technology based on which generative AI works. You need that. But then in addition to that, in DvSum, we have the intelligence about your data, which is the context of your data. Again, let's take the example of marketing. There are tables. Tables have columns. What do those tables mean? What is the data inside them? What do those columns represent? What is my definition of certain metrics? You need all of this information to allow the large language model or the conversational AI to be able to chat and give the answers that you need. And the third piece of DvSum is the ability for it to interact or connect to a Snowflake Live, to a Databricks, to an Azure, to a Oracle database, to a MySQL, to a MongoDB, so that it can run those queries against those databases, bring back results, visualize them automatically, so that we give that experience where a business user, without knowing any other context, without knowing any other, just knowing about their business, they're able to ask the questions and get the data and insights in real time. So ultimately, what experience...
Sorry, I have a question. I think is the right time to ask that question. One question I
Certainly.
get is that if we look, and let me read it. If we see the ChatGPT, if we compare it with traditional tools, what are the advantages are in terms of accuracy, efficiency, and scalability? How do you compare that with some of the more traditional tools that exist today?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference I would say is the fact that if you look at, I think the question refers to maybe some conversational capability of Power BI, like Q&A, or Tableau with Lens, or with ThoughtSpot with its query capability. A lot of those tools require the chatbot investment is gone in understanding the natural language. Mistakes. For example, I ask a question about what is my breakup of a certain metric by gender? And the data that you have is male and female, or M or F. Today, if you use a bottoms-up view of or bottoms-up way of training a chatbot, it requires significant amount of skills, ontologies, taxonomies in order to train the model on basic things, spelling mistakes. You have to build similarity algorithms. What ChatGPT or the new LLMs have enabled is taken away all of that problem. You already have a baseline model that has a very sophisticated general knowledge understanding. So that is the difference between traditional and today ChatGPT, is that it has taken away that noise. So now really it's about how do you combine that with the specific context of your data in order to do business conversations. So it's not about generate a SQL for me or give me a summary of this paragraph, which is the use cases that you see. This is about the business asking about what are my cross-sell and upsell opportunities for this customer. And the system is able to query my invoices and my purchase orders or my order history with the customer and then come up with insights. It's about truly business self-service analytics. So net is you've taken away all the effort required to train a chatbot on the basic capabilities of a conversation and natural language understanding. You are given a great starting point. Now you need to combine it with the specific intelligence about your data, and that's what we're doing with DvSum.
Thank you.
And so to finish off from a DvSum perspective, really the experience we're talking about is in a normal scenario, you have a user, you need to go through an iterative process with your analyst or your data engineers or IT to get to the data. Whereas with DvSum, we are enabling where that user is able to ask the questions about the business and it's able to translate that into the technical language, bring back the results to the user in a complete self-service fashion. So that was about, so what, and then, really how does it work is another piece to that is really what is required. I mean, we talk about tools like, okay, it all looks good and nice, but, how much time does it require for me to train this? And that's another thing that, built on our strong foundation that we have, it really is a very quick 3-step process because a lot of semantic intelligence is built into our ability to capture your information. So the 3-step process: connect to your data sources. The system is DvSum is able to extract just the metadata. It never captures your data, does not require taking your data to another environment. It just creates a intelligent catalog of your data sources automatically. The second thing is you give it some scope control. So it's more about governance. Who can have access to the bot? What data you want to chat with? So create a topic. You have the ability to define your specific metrics. For example, again, I'll use cost per click, cost per conversion. They all mean CPC. Maybe for a company, in their lingo, they use CPC for cost per conversion, not cost per click. If you tell ChatGPT that, what is my cost per click? Generate a SQL for a cost per click for CPC. It will probably look for a column that looks like cost per click. But in this case, I want cost per conversion. So being able to feed or train the bot on your specific terminology or lingo, those are some of the things you do in DvSum as part of the second step, again, called creating the bot. And then that's really it. You give access to your users and the users start chatting with data. We'll talk about federated learning and how does it keep improving in the as we go through the pitfalls of generative.
One more question I got. We ask people to be interactive, and they are. So I have to interrupt you once in a while. If you go back to your previous slide, one question I get is that, okay, with the adaptation of ChatGPT, how do we see the role of the data analyst change? Because if you see this picture, they're not on the right side, but we do know that they exist. So how the role changing?
Yes, I think it's a very great question. There is a lot of discussion, I'm sure, on LinkedIn and others that, oh, what is the role? Does it mean that we don't need data analysts anymore? Actually, it's quite the contrary. What the role of data analyst and data is going to actually elevate with using ChatGPT. What do I mean by that? If you're able to offload, if you ask a data analyst today, how much time do they spend on truly doing analysis, truly getting to the next level of advanced analytics, learning and doing more predictive and more prescriptive analytics, and you will find that they're not able to spend enough time. Why? Because they get inundated with all the requests from the business users who want a report, a basic report, who want extracts of data at the end of the quarter. If you take away that workload and push it down to the business users, now you're freeing up the time of the analyst to actually do more advanced insights work or analytics work. And so what we see is actually it is going to help the data analyst be more productive and the data analyst being able to drive more value for the organization.
Thank you.
All right. So we have covered the use case. We talked about how DvSum is addressing or enabling that use case. what have we found? And I'm sure what we are finding as we work with our customers, it's about reliability and security issues with generative AI. And that's really the topic of our webinar today is. So if we let me define what are the challenges we're talking about. If we are talking about, I'm sure everybody who's used ChatGPT, it's not always giving a right answer. It's not about completely incorrect answer, but not exactly what I wanted. So in a business world, in an enterprise world, you cannot afford to have a system generate wrong answers from your data. I mean, already we have data quality issues. You don't want to add another layer that's going to add it further. So the first issue with using generative AI and ChatGPT, and I'm going to use these interchangeably, even though ChatGPT is just one implementation of generative AI, but just using it interchangeably. So the first challenge is reliability. If you ask something and it gives an incorrect response, that's the first issue. And the second is repeatability. Business users do not like that if they ask the same thing, if they get the same report, suddenly the structure changes. So you want, so if you have incorrect or responses or you have inconsistent responses, then it is a reliability and trust issue. And why does that happen? Because the large language models, which is the models that do the generative AI, they do not have context of your data, right? So if you ask them a question and they do not understand, it's going to do based on its prediction. And so that might result in a wrong answer. And the second is related to that. By definition, generative AI is doing a prediction. And since it's not rule-based or heuristics-based, the same question might give a different answer when you ask it the next time. And that's also called, I mean, both of these things are also referred to as hallucinations, or also in context of hallucination. So that is the first issue, that anybody who's trying to enable bringing generative AI to the data in the enterprise, we have found with our customers, that is the first thing they care about or want to ensure, that the system is reliable in terms of generating the right response and consistency of response. And the second issue is about privacy and security. Now, first is, if I'm going to allow more people to access to data, the classical need of making sure that there is unauthorized access to data is not there. Or inadvertently, you have sensitive data, you have privacy compliance rules in the organization or regulatory compliance, and you don't want to, or you want to make sure as you enable more chat with the data or more democratization of data, how do you prevent from personal identifiable information, for example, PII information or other sensitive data, to not be exposed to people who are using the chat. Now, one could, I think, say that this is not really a generative AI related issue. It is more of a classical data democratization, data governance issue, or data security issue. But I think the element that comes into the picture is a lot of the way a lot of thinking process in using generative AI is, I need to give my data to a generative AI tool or a large language model like OpenAI today in order for me to get insights. And that approach essentially violates your data security and privacy, because now you are giving your information to another company or to another service or another cloud. It's going outside your network. And so that would be of concern. And we are finding that that is of concern to information security team, data privacy teams, that, you know, my data, if I want to use generative AI, my only options is that I have to feed my data into ChatGPT or somewhere else, and that's a no-no for them. And so that is the second issue with generative AI. At certain time in future, 4 or 5 years from now, other private large language models would be so sophisticated and mature, like OpenAI models, that you can actually run them in-house. But currently, it's very expensive, it's very computationally intensive, and it has nowhere close to the level of maturity that, you know, an OpenAI, ChatGPT, or Hugging Face models have.
So Ashish, I
So
got another
these are
question.
the two. Yeah,
I'm
these
sorry.
are the two issues, and we are going to now get into how in DvSum we have addressed these problems. But go ahead, Ali.
Sorry, I got this question from Alexandra. How generative AI can benefit the implementation of data data governance program, how generative AI can benefit the implementation of data governance.
Yeah, so I think this is a whole topic by itself, but I'll make a quick note of it. I think there is I would say generative AI has use cases in many areas, specifically for governance, where it can help with is, I would say the most important thing it can help with is about improving the metadata or the definition of your data. If you're able today, one of the things or let's say three things that you do in data governance is about defining a business glossary, improving the definitions of your data, of your technical data, enriching the metadata. And then, of course, third is applying governance policies and documents, etc. So where generative AI can help is on all three areas. One is about improving your definition of data. If you are able to say, hey, generate a description of this table or of these columns or these columns that represent this thing, and it's able to give in the form of a particular format, it is able to automate the work of a data steward in order to generate definitions that can then be sent for approval. So right there is the first case of automation where it can help with productivity and streamlining that process. And the second is certainly in generating policy documents or standards or procedures that today somebody has to write, and it could help with automating generation of those documents, and having them available so there is a consistent definition of those policies that are available outside. I think there are use cases in other areas also in terms of data quality. So one of the things in our data quality module we do is, how about asking the business rule to be defined in natural language, which is all data governance tool do, but we have taken it to the next level by using Gen AI to convert that into a data quality rule, whether it's in the form of a query that can run against the data source and then bring back those exceptions for master data, or run observability in terms of writing the rule. So automating a business rule into a data quality rule and being able to execute, that's another use case of generative AI in a data quality specific, but overall in the data governance side.
Thank you, Ashish.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about the two issues of reliability and security. So how do you address them? I mean, I think the value of generative AI is clear. How do you make it production grade? To make it production grade, you need to address the reliability and security issues. So how are we addressing it? And it's in the form of three things. So it's three capabilities you need to enable if you want to bring in generative AI into the organization and make it production worthy for allowing users to interact with data. The first one is about making the context important to generative AI. So intelligent metadata, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. What all do we mean by that? It's not just about a structure of your database. That's half of the information. What's more important is what does those data mean? What are the values inside them? So more intelligent and enriched metadata, you need that. Second is having strong data foundational principles or data governance processes about data classification. And you want all this automated, by the way. So if we go by the process, we need to have a full-scale data governance program in order to make this happen, then we have again lost the battle. So all of this needs to be automated in order for it to be effective with generative AI. So intelligent metadata, data governance, and the third is the ability for continuous feedback loop. However much any system is going to be, it'll never have the full intelligence that a human being would have at the moment, at least, where the people in the company know exactly what they're looking for. And if the system, it's okay for a system to not be fully accurate, as long as the system provides the mechanism to learn from the user input and then able to incorporate that into its own accuracy. That is that is really going to make it scalable. Otherwise, the time it would take to go from 85% accuracy to a 90% accuracy is going to be such a long tail that we'll never have a model that's ready for production. So these are the three things that we are doing in DvSum to get our version of generative AI for analytics to not have reliability issues and to ensure that there is privacy and compliance. Let's go a little bit more specific into what we mean by that. So the first is the fact that the chat with data is built on our data catalog and governance foundation. What that really means is that it understands you do not need to define the structure of your data. When it connects to your Snowflake or your Oracle or your MySQL or your Salesforce, it understands the structure of your data. And beyond that, there is additional metadata that DvSum as a catalog captures in terms of profiling the information and essentially automating that. So you already have a 70-80% starting point. The second is giving the ability or a tool that has the ability for you to further enrich that information. So that is with the human curation of the cataloging, and any data catalog tool would have the capability. The point is that the DvSum solution is built on the catalog, which means you have the ability to further enrich your metadata as part of enabling chat with data. The second is related to enriched metadata is the glossary. As I mentioned, a very classic example, CPC we use as an example, right? A company might, one of the issues with data or one of the value of data governance is standardization of metrics, also called metric governance. You have two different organizations who think about gross margin. Should it consider tax or not, or net margin? Does it include tax or not include tax, as an example? With DvSum, you're able to feed your definition of a metric, and then everybody who uses chat and ask about gross margin, it is able to consistently use the same definition. So that is another aspect of how we ensure reliability of information. And the third is about automatic data classification. Your sensitive data, your restricted data. One is the engine automatically enables that information so that data is already masked. And based on the policy rules that you define, either that those fields or those tables are not available for chat automatically. So what it does is really reduce the friction and the manual effort required to review whether I can allow this data to be enabled for other users to access. So essentially it's helping with streamlining data governance, which essentially makes it easier to democratize the data while ensuring there is security and privacy of the data. Another aspect is about, so again, we talk about LLMs, etc. So like I said, the current one way of thinking is I need to send my data to ChatGPT in order for me to get insights. Our approach is different. As I said, we are using ChatGPT or OpenAI only for the purpose of natural language understanding, which is to take the question that is being asked, to take the in the context of the data that of my organization, and then generating a SQL query or a Power BI DAX expression. So, and then it's still using a query mechanism to go to your source and bringing the data. So what is the value of this? The value of this is your data never goes to an LLM. It's only metadata that goes to LLM. And the second is DvSum's own solution. And this is something that's unique in our architecture, is its ability to do push down processing. And what it really means is, even as a tool, we only work when, that's why metadata is so important. We only work and capture metadata. Your data never leaves your network, whether it's on premise or in the cloud. When the users ask those questions, using metadata, we convert it into the right queries. That query is sent down to your system. The net results of that is fetched back to the browser, to the user, and visualizations are done in the browser. So DvSum never stores or captures your data. There is more agility. There is zero latency. There is no copy of data that is happening. Your data is not going to OpenAI. So IT is happy. Information security is happy about that. And the final thing I would add is about continuous learning. So as I said, the most important thing in improving the model is how does it learn on the fly. So in DvSum, we have the ability to capture feedback and then apply it in an automated fashion back into the system. So imagine system generates a response. Maybe it's not accurate. The user gives their feedback. The feedback could again be in natural language, could be in the form of a specification. That feedback is stored in DvSum in our system as a long-term AI memory, and that information is used again when this user or another user asks a similar question, not necessarily an exact question. It's able to use that learning and keep improving its answer. And so this continuous learning is the third way in how you improve reliability of the responses and consistency of responses. Finally, let me summarize this by talking about, so what is the ultimate business value, right? So, okay, data democratization, all that is good. What is the real value of enabling an AI-powered chat and, with DvSum CADDI as an instance of that? And so really it's about three buckets of value. So first is about the value to the individual business user, the person in sales, the sales rep, the marketing analyst, the operations analyst, the buyer in procurement. What is the value to them? The value to them is true self-service analysis, empowering them to find insights themselves without having to learn some new skills, technical skills, and without having to rely on IT and analyst for every request. So it's true democratization or last mile BI that we are solving. The second is for the organization. One of the key tenets of data office and enabling data governance is what? It's about enabling a data-driven culture. And so once you bring more people, if you're able to bring your sales functions and your marketing functions and other people to be able to make it easy for them to find insights with data, guess what? More decisions will be data-driven and you're building a data-driven culture. And the third is the true financial value of it. In a fast moving world, the decisions, you cannot really afford to wait for 2 weeks to make a decision, or you will make a wrong decision. Business is not going to wait. So if you are able to bring data to the user instantly in the now, it's going to improve business agility and potentially either help in improving productivity that reduces cost, or actual impact from an operational standpoint, bringing operational efficiency or finding new opportunity for business innovation of growth. So really, in summary, DvSum CADDI is an AI-powered chat, enables organizations to truly democratize data, get to a data-driven culture, and really improve business outcomes through finding new innovations for growth or for finding operational efficiencies. And that was the content, Ali, that I wanted to present. Let's open up for any other questions.
Thank you very much, Ashish. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for your insight. I have a couple of questions here. Please send more questions, but these are some that I received before. One is, are there any specific industries or sectors where the utilization of ChatGPT has shown promising results? Any area that you have seen that?
Yeah, so I will, again, I think this area is so broad. There are many different use cases. We'll focus again on the analytics use case, but let's talk within analytics of these industries. So clearly, I'm sure there are many, but we can talk about, where we are seeing a lot of traction or a lot of interest. So certainly in healthcare, healthcare is one, and within healthcare, if we talk about, the health insurance companies, the providers or the hospital systems and the clinics, the pharma companies, which is more on manufacturing side, and pharmacy. So I think being able to enable the organizations, the functions, whether it's the claim care officers in the payers, for providers, it's about the in the operational side, nurse leaders, nurse practitioners. I'm sorry, not nurse practitioners, the nursing staff, to be able to find what is going to be I'll take some examples. On the insurance side, it's about enabling those claim officers to be able to find very detailed, specific slices of data. There are 237 markers in a claim data. If you enable chat for the person to find about certain denials and how many cases we had for this specific case through a chat interface, it's going to allow them to easily adjudicate those appeals and appeasements. It can help them in getting to better customer service eventually. So clearly healthcare, insurance is one area. We can talk about similarly on provider side. On pharmaceutical side, it's about market intelligence. Whether it's during the clinical trials or after commercialization. I think I would say and industry-wise, if you take a flip side, if you look at retail side, can you enable or enabling buyers to be able to find their worst performing products that are not going through sell-through? That is going to help them decide on which products to not purchase inventory for, and which products to purchase inventory for. So I think there is every industry that is, I would say there is a common industry and function, that intersection. So when I say function, sales versus marketing versus operations versus customer service versus finance as a common set, and maybe HR, but first few. And then on industry, you have healthcare, you have financial services, retail, manufacturing, I mean, insurance. Can you find the underwriters to be able to find the policy coverage for a particular customer just by chat data rather than going and finding this information? So there is a lot of use cases for chat with data that we are seeing, Ali, where uh, I think the net is the same. How can you empower those users to quickly find insights so they can do their job better and really drive better business performance? That is the common theme. These are some of the common use cases that I'm seeing.
I have, it's not a question, it's more of a comment I have from one of our participants that says that, generative AI can actually help in defining data quality rules and contribute to the access to assess the data quality and help the overall implementation of data quality. And I think it's correct, as Ashish mentioned on when we talk about data governance, definitely this is a new tool that has many new applications. Some of them might not even be discovered yet. I'm looking at the time. We have 2 more minutes. Let me ask my standard question that I always ask, and is an open. This is my question. Where do you think the chat GPT would be in the context of enterprise data in the future? I'm asking that every month because every month we see things are changing. So what's your take on the future?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stop sharing screen so I can look at it. So clearly, I think it's an evolving. If anybody says they know exactly where things will be even 1 year from now, I think they don't know. Things are evolving very fast. I think if you look at the last 6-7 months since Chat GPT or the whole LLM generative AI came mainstream, became more popular in the mainstream culture, is the fact that what has not changed is that ultimately it's about what is the value that you're providing. The value could be as simple as, are you empowering a data engineer or an analyst to do something better? But ultimately, it has to connect to a value. It can be, you can bring Chat GPT, it's going to evolve. AI is going to help enable use cases that were not done. But ultimately, it has to tie to a business value, right? And when I say business value, it has to be in the form of, is it making productivity improvements, finding new areas of innovation, delivering a better customer experience, delivering better patient care? Ultimately, it has to tie to that. If you don't tie any technology to that, it's very quickly going to lose the value from the decision maker standpoint, right? That's number one. And the second thing is that I think there are two areas where it is going, right? One is about technology innovation on the whole LLM generative AI, which is building smaller LLMs, building private LLMs. That's Databricks, for example, is putting their bets on that. So and clearly there's going to be need for that. The other is what I call as an enterprise use case version of an LLM. So it's not necessarily about building the technology that does it, but how do you apply the technology? And at least from DvSum and I'm sure a lot of companies like ours, the focus is about the enterprise use case. And within enterprise use case also, again, I can go on over it. There is the platform level data engineer use cases. There is the questions that were asked about data quality and governance. I think the third one, which is where DvSum's focused, is right to the business user, the guys who are making the decision for the enterprise. How can we bring generative AI to benefit them in doing their job? And that is through this last mile BI problem, which is empowering them to find insights themselves. But yeah, I think those are it's a very exciting field, and things are changing every week. But what's going to be constant is, how do you bring the value to what the company does at its core, which is going to be specific for that company.
Thank you, Ashish. There's so much to discuss, but so little time. I want to thank you, our participant. I want to thank you, Ashish. Just watch for an invitation for another webinar for, let me get the date correctly, for August 24th. There would be another webinar, and we discuss some of these issues and some more and new items and subjects. And by that time, if you have any questions, if you have I see one request was how you can access do the demo, go out to our website, contact me or Ashish, and be happy to guide you through for any type of a trial.
Yeah, please. I was going to add, Ali, sorry, I wanted to add that as before people leave, is that, clearly the proof is in the pudding. And because it's very evolving, there's a lot of experimentation going on. I strongly would, if you believe that, you want to try out what generative AI can do for you in the form of analytics, please do contact us. Ali and I will send us our information, share, help you with test drive. We are doing free proof of concepts. And so we'll be happy to, discuss further on what your requirements are and, what value we can bring towards that. And then certainly in terms of, more, we are starting a webinar. So thank you for our audience. And we are going to be, bringing more, hopefully more information that you will find useful during these webinars.
You all, and talk to you next month. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.